Hi, I'm Pete from Project Heaven, and this week we're talking about wiring. You probably saw our previous video on crimping. In this video we're going to talk about looms and loom coverings. On the table here I've got various types of loom coverings. Probably going from worst to best, I suppose, but they've all got their own sort of attributes. So this sort of stuff is very quick and easy and nasty. A lot of modern cars use it. We don't really use this on anything here, maybe on the back of the trailer or something. It's just some corrugated tubing that's got a slit down it. Then you can feed the cables in and you can put little bits of insulation tape around it. It's good because it's got a good mechanical sort of resistance, but it's very unattractive and not period correct at all. Okay, so the next type of covering is a non-heat shrinkable PVC tubing, which is quite good stuff in like under the car, in the engine bay. What you do here is you choose the appropriate size, feed your cables through it, then adhesive line to heat shrink the ends where the cables come out. And if you've got like a T-junction or something like that, again, you'd probably use adhesive line heat shrink there. Again, it's quite a modern solution, but it can look quite neat if it's done well. The next one is like this stuff, which I kind of call Chinese finger trap loom covering, which expands when you push it. And this can look quite smart. You have to get different sizes of this. You'd put it over the wires, and then again, adhesive line heat shrink at the ends to terminate it. And it can look quite tricky if it's done properly, but again, that's quite a modern sort of solution. Then moving over here, we've got in the engine bay, we've got these PVC tapes which aren't sticky. And what you do with these is you'd put a little dab of super glue on there, start it off, and then holding the roll backwards, a bit like when you're putting plumber's tape on to keep the tension in. You then wind it round like that. Okay. Actually, interestingly, the grey one is pretty much just used on Mark 1 Escorts. Everything else would use black. Most motorcycles use this as well. That's very common on motorbikes. It looks pretty good. It's a pretty good way of doing things inside the engine bay, stuff like that. Right, next one would be Tesa tape, which is like a fabric kind of looking tape. It's not waterproof, so it's no good outside the car, but it's good inside the car. Not perfect. I wouldn't do a whole loom inside a car with this. Really, for a loom inside like a vintage car or something like that, I'd make the loom up and then send it off to be actually woven, where they actually weave fabric around the outside of the loom. But this can make quite a neat, quick job of things inside the car. Next one, which is something I pretty much never use, is just like electrical tape. You should never really use that to cover a loom. It's a real bodge. You know, you see it on loads of stuff. When you use it in an engine bay, the glue melts and goes all over everything, and it just makes a sticky mess, and it looks really cheap and nasty. What I would use this for though is when I'm laying out a loom in a car for the first time, I would bundle the cables together at regular intervals, sort of like 6 inches or so, ready for me to then do the proper loom covering. So it's good for sort of trialing out stuff. And then this brings me to my favourite one, which is loom lacing. So it's like a nylon cord with like a wax outer or PVC outer. There's lots of different types of this stuff, and use a special sort of process you go through where you weave the cables together like this. And when you loom lace something, you want to have all the cables straight, no lost wires. So you know, if you see a wire at this end, you see it at that end. And when you're taking things off, they want to come off in nice regular intervals. And in a later video, we'll possibly show you how to do this. Okay, so here's a loom, an example of a loom that we've made. So we bought the proper fabric coated wire, and we made this whole loom up on a pin board. And then once that was done, we roughly held it together with tape and then sent it off to have it all fabric woven like this, as it should be on a pre-war car. Thanks for watching today's video on the different types of looms. Check back in tomorrow for our next video where we'll discuss different types of ECUs. If you want to see more videos, have a look at our video page on our website.